Good Wednesday afternoon, everybody. It's Jim. It's Amadeus. Where's Amadeus? What did I do with him? There he is. Okay. There's Amadeus. And here we are on a Wednesday, and we were just talking in the pre-show. There's not a lot to talk about, but that never stopped us before. So we will definitely chat about something. Interesting thing yesterday. I don't know if you saw it or not, but Bill Belichick was interviewed on WEI in Boston, which is his preferred radio station. And they asked him about the future, and he said, "Well, I am here to coach the football team through the end of this year, and I guess we'll sit down and figure out what's going to happen at the end of the year." So, in his usual Belichick way, he was non-committal about what he wants to do, but it really isn't up to him. It's kind of up to the crafts.
Yep, the classic Belichick answer. We're focused on the Jets this week. We're
Right.
4-12, and we have nothing to play for, but we're focused on the Jets this week.
That's right. Where else would it be? The scenario that keeps popping up is that the Crafts will offer him the coaching job, but they will demand that they hire a new general manager, which, of course, he's been the general manager and president of football operations. They feel that that perhaps Coach Belichick didn't exactly get hasn't gotten the draft right for them, and part of the problem that the New England has is that their drafts have been weak, and so therefore they haven't had the kind of team that they expected.
I mean, that's one way to put it. I mean, you can say what you want about Belichick, but
Right.
the defense has been playing well these last few weeks, and
Right.
since they gave him, the free reign to put Zappy out there, even the offense has been a bit better. So you can, I don't know, the Crafts can chalk it up to, oh, we're not drafting well enough, but at the same time, if you're going to draft players like Bailey Zappi and you're not going to allow the head coach to play them, well, that's just as big a problem as not drafting the right guys for the team.
100%. You you know you can't have it both ways. He either is good at what he does, or he's not, and I think therein is the problem. I think that we have one thing we have seen, and if there is such a thing as a um, as um, a template for this, we really haven't seen many coaches who are the coach and general manager that it's been successful.
Yeah, it's a lot on the plate for a single person to do.
Mm-hmm. It's it's an amazing situation, and when you look at it, uh, you know it was Belichick who I'm sorry, Parcells, who was the first to push that concept. And the famous line, don't expect me to cook the dinner if I don't have, the if I don't have if I can't buy the groceries. And so it didn't work for him in Dallas. It didn't work for him in New York, where he actually uh, offered offered the job to Belichick. Belichick said no. Bill goes up and is going to introduce him at a press conference as the new head coach, figuring that he didn't really know that that's what he didn't want to do. And lo and behold, by that time, Belichick had called and said, "Hey, look, I understand you're looking for a coach in New England. I'd be happy to take that job." And so by the time, Bill had finished his press conference and said, tomorrow we're going to name the new coach, with leaking every possibility that was Belichick, that Belichick was in New England and Bill was sitting there, in the Meadowlands wondering what the hell just happened.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, It'll be interesting to see what happens. I totally agree that he's fallen off as the GM. It's too much. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter who you are. It's too much for anybody to have that much on your plate.
Hmm.
He, like I said, the defense has been playing well lately,
Right.
and the thing is, you had the better quarterback sitting for the last season and a half.
Right.
Now, there's a lot of reason to believe that was more of a craft decision.
Uh-huh.
And if that's the case, then you can't really boil down Belichick to being, the problem. But I totally agree.
Right.
He should definitely, give up the GM status
Hmm.
and the drafting type thing, because he's a great defensive coordinator and he needs to
Right.
focus on that, right? If you're going
Yeah.
to be the head coach, fix the defense which is playing very well. Maybe just add a few pieces to it and fix the offense. That's what your focus needs to be.
That would be the wise choice in that case. And it makes a lot of sense because, as I said before, very few um, head coaches, or for that matter, players who leave to become general managers, or that sort of thing. That's been a hit and miss too. You can go back to basketball, where Jerry West turned out to be a very good, um, you know, evaluator of talent. Terrible coach, but a very good, executive from that standpoint. But you can put that's on your one hand. You can count those guys. I mean, look at Michael Jordan when Michael was a minority owner in the Washington Wizards. He drafted Kwame Brown in the 2001 draft, which Kwame was a high school kid. And, you know, in that same draft, just saying, was Paul Gasol, Tony Parker, Momek Okafor. And so basically, there were like 9 All Stars in that draft. And Michael wanted the kid out of Georgia high school. So I think we know that the coaches and front office people don't always make the wisest of choices. So we'll we'll leave it at that. But that's where that is. My guess is that he will not want to do that, not want to allow for a general manager and a president of football operations, and he'll go someplace where they'll let him do it. I don't think he's finished coaching, is what I guess I'm trying to say here.
Oh, I totally don't think he's finished either, but it'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see who will give him all three of those positions.
I don't think I don't think this is what this is kind of bizarre to say. I could see him going to the Chargers or some team that has the talent already there, and him working with. I think he could work with a general manager, and I mean he's done it in the past. So I think he could do that. I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is he would, if he stayed at New England, they would be hiring a general manager. They would be hiring a president of football operations, and he basically would not be that guy anymore. So in essence, he would be replaced. If he went to another, operation where, his deal was the guy, um, maybe he'll sign off on a general manager and say, you know what, I understand what they want. They're giving me whatever I need. I've got input, with the general manager and all that situation. So I get it. I don't have to be general manager. I respect the guys that are doing it. So maybe that's his way out. But we don't know. We'll find out though, because they're not going anywhere. And once the season's over, we'll find out that they're not going to. They'll make a decision one way or the other. What's going to happen in New England? But it will be a drama that we will follow because we like drama. Drama's good. Excuse me. So, let's take a quick look at the top 25 in college basketball. The Purdue Boilermakers are your number one team this week in the AP Top 25. Followed by Kansas, Houston, UConn at the 4 spot, Tennessee at the 5 spot, Kentucky at 6, Marquette, Shaka's team at 7, North Carolina breaks into the top 10. They're 8. Illinois is 9. Zona is 10. Oklahoma, 11. BYU in the 12 spot. Colorado State. There you go. There's the Rams are playing your song there, buddy.
I had
At
them last
30.
night against New Mexico too.
There you go. Duke, is in the 14th spot. Memphis is 15. Clemson, 16th spot. Florida Atlantic University, who beat, by the way, Arizona in Vegas a couple weeks ago, is in that 17th spot. Baylor's 18. James Madison, who, as we said before, seems to do everything right in sports, is 19. Texas is your 20 team. Wisconsin at 21. Ole Miss, 22. Providence, 23. Gonzaga in the 24th spot. And Auburn is your 25th team in this week's Associated Press top 25 basketball teams.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me how just at the tail end of those rankings there, Texas was one of those teams. They were supposed to be one of the best in the country last year.
Right.
Obviously, they had that situation with the head coach, and then Rodney Terry took over. Right. Well, Texas didn't shape up to what they were supposed to be last year, and already, little bit of a stumbling team this year. And who's slowly climbing up the rankings right behind them there? Ole Miss. And who did they hire as their head coach this season? Chris Beard. So very interesting just to see the effect really that he's had on Texas and Ole Miss with those decisions that were made.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that they've made. They made good hires both at on the football side and on the basketball side for them. So I think that's something we'll keep an eye on. But I think that one of the things that we can look at and say this is going to be some key information, but I truly think that you can't really evaluate these teams just yet because they're just getting into conference play. They really have played, a mishmash of, of teams that are out of conference in tournaments and things like that. So once they get focused in there, we'll see how it comes out. But I do think that it's going to be an interesting season. I don't think that there's that much difference in number 1 and number 25 on this list.
Yeah, and again, this is another sport I love to use the tier system in, right? Because is it really fair to say Purdue's a clear-cut number 1 in the country? Absolutely not. But are they one of the best teams? Absolutely. So I would have them in there. So definitely good. Kansas, because as you said, these teams, they play each other early in the season before they've really even figured out what they are too. Right. So you get like a tough loss. Kansas takes a tough loss to Marquette there, and a few of these teams, they take tough losses early, unless you're Michigan State, who's just falling apart at the seams. But it's one of those things where I definitely love to use the tier system. Now that being said, I have a massive beef with one of the teams in this top 10, and I know you have a massive beef with a different team in the top 10 as well. So
I'll let you go first. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we'll start with mine. I know they've had a bit of a rough stretch lately, but Arizona, there's no reason to drop them down to 10.
No.
Okay, you cannot sit there and tell me Tennessee's a better team than Arizona or North Carolina.
I was going to say North Carolina definitely isn't a better team than Arizona.
Yeah, so that was a little ridiculous. They just got blown out by Stanford. They took that loss to FAU. FAU is a very good team. They were in the Final Four last year.
That was a double overtime loss.
Yeah, and their other loss was against Purdue at a neutral site in Indiana, so it was more of a home game for Purdue. So yeah,
Hmm.
they had the one bad loss in their last game against Stanford, really.
Hmm.
But other than that, like you can't tell me this team they had a bad night against Stanford. You can't
Yeah,
tell me this team's worse than North Carolina. So that's my beef with the top 10. I still think Arizona is a top 4 team. And I know you got one, Jim. You tell me what that beef is.
it's my beef was with Houston. I just don't think. Look, one of the problems of trying to evaluate teams before they play conference is the fact that they don't practice on a regular basis. Okay, they they go and they'll play a game, and instead of the 2 games a week which you normally play, they'll play maybe 3 games in a month, and so it's really hard to get your practice focused, to get your team focused, and yeah, I mean, somebody's got to be in the top 25. I get that, okay, but a lot of these early season top 25 is not earned spots, but just you're getting there on your reputation. And I think Houston's playing with house money that they had from last season. And will they become a top 25 team? We'll see. The team ahead of them in Kansas is also in the Big 12, and so they'll be seeing each other. And there's a lot of other Big 12 teams, Oklahoma, BYU, who are going to have an opportunity to play them too. So I think the Big 12 is going to be a conference where they're going to eat their young, and Kansas and some of these blue blood programs are going to be there. So I don't know what's going to happen with Houston. I truly do not know. It'll be an interesting situation to say the least. But I don't think that Houston is warranted a number 3 spot. Especially I've seen UConn play, and hell, even Tennessee is a good basketball team. I just don't see where Houston's the third best team in the country.
Yeah, well, UConn just continues to get disrespected as the
Right.
defending national champions. But yeah, I know you're getting excited for January because in the past we wouldn't see
Hmm.
Houston get tested the way they're going to
Right.
get tested being in the Big 12 now. So
Hmm.
and there's a lot of good teams. You mentioned Kansas, but
Hmm.
we got Baylor in there.
Right.
Kansas State was a solid team last
Look
year.
at
Yeah, they
BYU.
lost. Yeah, BYU, the team flying under the radar right
Yeah.
now. 12th in the country, and
Yeah.
they're like 14-1 too. I think their only loss was in the Holy War to Utah. So, and
Right.
we know how Utah treats that game.
Oh my
So,
God. Yeah,
so
they don't care if they
understandable
win
loss.
one game of the season, other than if it's that game, that's it.
Yeah, that was
So
home for Utah. So yeah, this BYU team, they're a newcomer to the Big 12 too. So
right.
it's going to be an exciting bit. The Big 12, maybe that watered down conference in football, but damn, it's one of the best football or one of the best basketball conferences in the country by
Well,
far.
they inherited. I mean, Arizona. They added, BYU. So yeah, I mean, they definitely made some moves that I think are going to be. We're going to see back on the back end in March. You're going to see some teams. Uh, Quite possibly, they could have 7 or 8 teams in the tournament.
Oh yeah, definitely. Them Big 12 and the Big East, I think, are the
Hmm.
two best conferences in
Hmm.
basketball. I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can argue that. I think one of the problems that the Big 12 had, I'm sorry, the Big 10 had, is they've forever decided not to play up tempo. They play half court basketball. They kind of prod their way through it. And I mean, there were teams, Michigan State, when they had the run and gun kind of guys on their teams. But for the most part, that league has always stayed in the kind of half court, set it up, take your shot kind of basketball. Um, Meanwhile, in the ACC, you had and you continue to have more of a nuanced type of basketball. It's not. But here's where the Big East is has established themselves over the years, and that is the Big East you know is a street ball team. I mean, most of those teams in the Big East are from cities where the kids play on the on the concrete basketball basketball courts in their neighborhoods, and they play street ball, which is very creative and very physical, and that helps them. With regard to the Big 12, I mean, you've got teams out there where they just are incredibly athletic kids. I mean, there's some crazy athletic kids that are playing in that conference, and so we'll see. And I just look. I know Purdue gets first place, and there's nothing. I don't have a beef with Purdue in the top spot. I don't think Purdue will be in the top spot when the season ends.
Yeah, like I said, some of those games, like I think
Hmm.
Arizona is a team that could have beaten them
Yeah,
if they played that at a neutral site in Arizona. But no, it was in it was in Indiana at a neutral site where it was all
right.
home fans. Just and Purdue's played a lot of games like that. Like they
Sure.
had a neutral site game up here in Toronto against Alabama. That game was specifically for Zach Eady because he's Canadian.
Right.
It's that was all friends and family. I couldn't even get tickets. I actually tried to go to that game and there were
Oh,
no
okay.
tickets available. So that'll tell you that was like a friends and family for
Right.
Eady kind of game. So
Right.
and they still struggled, didn't it? But yeah, 100%. I agree. One of the best teams in the country,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's hard to pin really a clear cut
Yeah.
number one. I would throw them, Arizona, UConn, all these
Hmm.
teams, in roughly in the same tier.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to argue that Illinois isn't the best team in the Big 10.
Yeah, there's actually I will say about the Big Ten. Last year it was trash because it was
Hmm.
it was Purdue and everybody else. But this
Right.
year, seeing Nebraska come out strong,
Sure.
Indiana
Hmm.
looks like they're good again. Yeah, as you just mentioned, Illinois, Wisconsin has come out of
Hmm.
nowhere and they're good again. So yeah, it looks like some of the Big Ten teams are starting to restore
Hmm.
themselves, and maybe we can actually get an interesting race in the Big Ten conference this year.
I think so. And don't sleep on Maryland. Maryland has a good basketball team this year as well. I don't think they're the top tier of the league, but they certainly can. They're scared the hell out of you. And
Yeah, they're good, but not top tier. They let me
no,
down against
no,
Purdue yesterday. They just totally dropped the ball on their home court. They're dead to me, Jim. They're dead
they're
to me.
dead to me. I'm just saying they can scare you.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree.
You know.
I liked them enough to bet them. They let
Okay.
me down. They let me down on the wrong
Damn,
night.
the Terrapins are dead to me. Um, so there you go. From that standpoint, uh, I don't know. I mean, one of the joys of watching college basketball is you get to see a Colorado State, you know, and Gonzaga and teams like that where they're not particularly known around the country, but they suddenly pop up in the top 25, and you suddenly begin the concept of taking a peek at these teams and seeing just what makes them, you know, um, what makes them worthy of being in the top 25. So you get some party crashers in college basketball that you don't get in college football.
Yeah, definitely. We had a few last year. Obviously, San Diego State was one of those teams where they
Yeah.
found their way to the Final Four because they gave up less than 50 points a game playing
Hmm.
that real defensive basketball. And then yeah,
Hmm.
FAU was another one, and they've
Yeah.
kind of it's almost like they've taken the country by storm because they're
Right.
they're a bit of a darling team this year. And
Like
everybody
it's like
loves their FAU.
Florida Gulf Coast a few years back. They were one. You had
Loyola, Chicago.
Loyola Chicago with the nun who.
My buddy still asks me about Sister Jean to this day.
Well, last
He's
time I checked, Sister Jean was doing okay. She showed up at a game the other day, so good on Sister Jean.
Yeah, she didn't she throw the pitch at a Cubs game
Oh
too this
yeah,
this
no,
last
she's a
season?
she's a celebrity in Chicago. She's an absolute and total celebrity in Chicago. So I'm sure she gets free pizza no matter where she goes in Chicago.
Oh
But
yeah.
you were on Colorado State, and that's you know the undervalued Mountain West seems to always have somebody showing up.
Yeah, last year it was San Diego State, as we just
Hmm.
mentioned, with that defense. But this
Right.
year it looks like Colorado State might just be the team to beat in that conference. They've obviously they've had some big wins. They beat
Hmm.
Creighton earlier this year, and yeah, they're on a tear right now. They won again
Mhm,
last night against New Mexico in their
mhm.
first conference game of the season. New Mexico, who was 12-1 going into that
Right,
game, keep in mind. So it's not like New Mexico was a bad Mountain West team. That's a
right.
very, very good non-conference team there. So yeah,
Mhm.
100%. Colorado State is they're my darling this year.
Well, Colorado State wasn't bad last year. They just happened to be in the same conference with San Diego State.
Yeah, but San Diego State, they're not as good this year. So
Mhm.
that the room might have opened up for Colorado State to take
Yeah,
this conference by storm.
absolutely. And um, they were a victim of their own success. They had some kids go play in the college, in the pros, and then they had some kids who went in the transfer portal. And so I think that they were the ones that probably got screwed over worse than anybody with regard to what happened with the Big 12. I'm sorry, the Pac 12 deal. Um, had they been announced as a Pac 12 team and had the Pac 12 stayed together, I think that would have benefited them greatly. It unfortunately didn't for a lot of teams and a lot of reasons, but that one hung on, there were some kids that were staying because they were going to play in the Pac 12. And then when they didn't, they left. So it makes it difficult, especially on a basketball team when you really only have 12 or 14 guys.
Yeah, definitely. And especially, after the season you
Hmm.
had last year, it's hard to replicate again. Like look at FAU. FAU's trying to do it because they brought back what 95% of the
Right,
team.
they
But
brought them all back. Yeah.
that's the thing. As soon as one kid leaves, then all the dominoes start to
Hmm.
fall. And unless you're bringing back the whole team, which is tough to do, it's really hard to keep those talented players there.
Well, the other thing too, especially in college basketball, you have to have more than 5 players. Okay, you have to have some guys who can contribute off the bench. And what happens when an FAU or a San Diego State or one of these programs that you know is not in a power conference? What you see is the depth is what kills them. They can hang with you with their top five, but if one of the five gets knocked out or they decide to leave to go play somewhere else, it leaves you at a depth problem, and that's what happened with San Diego State's what happens to a lot of these power non-power, I guess it would be power four conferences now, um, because they just don't have the depth there. They can play with you 5-on-5, but once these big boys go to the bench, there's a plenty of guys to play.
And that's the strategy in a lot of these games, right? When these
Right,
lesser teams go up against these stronger teams, that's the goal. Just hang in there. And when eventually they got to take their best player off, and when they do, you try to take advantage of those,
right,
4 6 minutes, whatever it may be.
right. Well, and there used to be teams, and no, it's not so much now in the transfer portal, but there back in the day there was what um, in Arkansas. I'm sorry, trying to remember the Arkansas. They had what they call 40 minutes of hell, and they had an entire 5 guys who they would swap out. They'd swap out their first 5 for these other 5 guys, and they were high energy guys, and basically they would wear the opposing team out. And by the time you got to the closing moments of the game, it was 40 minutes of hell. You figured out, okay, I played 34 minutes and these guys are still here and they're driving me nuts. Well, guess what? It was because, you weren't playing just those 5 guys on the court. You're playing 8 or 9 or 10 guys who were, you know, when they put them in, they just ran you all over the court.
Yeah, that's also tough because people have different tendencies. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're watching film on the starters, and
Mm-hmm.
now you get these 5 guys come in,
Yeah. And they
and
all come
even
at the
though
same time.
yeah, and even though their job's different, it's like you're playing a different team now.
Yeah. And they're high energy guys. So they know they're in there for 5 minutes. So they're going to run, and they're going to force you to run with them. And by the time the other guys get in, they've already had that 5 minute rest. And with that, we know in college basketball, you get a couple of timeouts, and then that 5 minutes becomes 7 or 8 minutes. And
I
so
always say,
that's
Jim, I always say the last minute of the basketball is the longest 30 minutes of the game.
that's true. It's true. It absolutely is. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good teams on this list, but picking out who's going to be in the Final Four, or even for that matter in the championship game, is at this point in time, I don't think there's any locks in in this top 25, which is a good thing.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. There's a lot of good teams in that first tier if you want to use the tier system. So
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to see because obviously conference schedules start now, and these teams are going to look very different come the end of the season. So we might have some teams we thought were good and
Yeah,
fell off, and we might have some teams that came out of nowhere and just wow.
right. So you brought this up before, but I think it's definitely. By the way, Clark, stone cold killer, baby. They last night in her game with for Iowa, they were playing against Michigan State, and you know they uh, they gave her the ball, and she was, I don't know, about might have been 35, 40 feet away from the basket. And she just tosses one up from that distance, and she's backing up, Michael Jordan style, and watching it as it just hits nothing but net for Iowa last night as they took out Michigan State. But what a treat to watch that young lady play basketball.
Yeah, I also saw that there was a women's team that won by 141 points yesterday. It
Yeah,
was the
they
most
were.
in history.
Whoa. I mean, yeah, that's how hard it is to score 141 points in 40 minutes. I
Yeah,
mean,
just to score that.
yeah. I mean, you could just forget you didn't even have another team on the other side. 40 minutes of just running up and down the court and and putting the ball in the basket for 141 points is still tough.
Yeah, and I think it was Grambling State that did it too. So
Oh,
not
okay.
your, yeah, definitely not your
Not your
one of
name
the
brand.
best team.
Yeah.
Yeah, not one of the best teams in the country for sure on
Yeah.
the women's side. So definitely, good on Grambling State. They I forget who it was they played
They hung
or
it on somebody.
yeah, they absolutely destroyed.
Well, we know it was an IUPUI because they weren't playing last night. So
Hey, they won the other day. I actually took
I
them.
know
They
that was a
won.
mistake. You took them, and
Yeah, they're a 2.5 point dog at home, and they were playing Detroit, who's 0-14, and
okay.
I personally bet it. Something inside me just said, if there's ever a day to bet IUPUI,
This
today
is it.
might be the day. And I had people telling me too. They're like, "Nah, Detroit's gonna get their first win today." I was like, "No, IUPUI getting it done."
They're taking care of business.
So by the way, it was I just looked it up. It was
Mhm.
CBS. I was literally the team is called CBS that the
Okay.
Grambling State women's team played. I don't know if
Okay.
this was like College of Biblical Studies. Okay, I thought maybe CBS put together like
College.
a team of executives or something.
Right. Yeah. They played an exhibition game.
Yeah, yeah. So Grambling State women's team beat the College of Biblical Studies 159-18 yesterday.
I guess you could say they didn't have a prayer.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Tip your waitresses, everybody. I'm here through this weekend.
That was a wild game. Wow.
Well, I mean, 141 points. That's it. NBA teams have tough times getting to. I don't know that they even get to those numbers.
No, unless you're like the pissed off Celtics will do it
Right.
on a night, right? They,
Right.
they, they when they lose, they come back and they hang a 140 on you and win by 30 points.
Right.
That's really like the only time, or the Pacers who average
Right.
100
Sure. Fair
close to
enough.
130 points a game.
It's fair enough. It's fair enough. But
But yeah, NBA not even. That's ridiculous.
no, that ain't gonna happen, boys and girls.
It's like a cricket score, Jim. It's like the first half of a cricket score, only a
Right.
day
Yeah.
and a half in.
110-4. Okay. You're like 110-4. They must be, because when I first, my friend Doug Hoyt from Jamaica was a big cricket fan, and so I was watching one day, and he says, I looked at the score, I said 110-4 or something like that. And he goes, "Oh yeah," he says, "Don't worry about it. We'll come back and get him." I said, "Come back and get him? What the hell? What are you gonna? You're very, very." He goes, "No, he goes, it's not uncommon for a team to score 110. As a matter of fact, we're more apt to score 125, 140 points." And like, okay, so I got a better appreciation for how they score the cricket matches, but not much of a better idea of what they do to get there. But hey, what are
Yeah, I
you
was
gonna
gonna
do,
say
right?
when's CBS up to bat in this game? So
Right,
Grambling
right.
State got their turn. I guess CBS goes tomorrow.
I guess so. Maybe it's one of those 3 or 4 day games, but crazy stuff. All right, let's talk about what you got for us for this evening.
Yeah, you can check out my premium plays at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. Coming off a 2-3 day, had not a great day on the pitch, but went 2-1 in college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Cashed my MAC game of the month with Toledo beating Ohio, so that was good.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight, I just got the 5 plays you can get: 2 in NBA, 3 in college basketball, including
Mm-hmm.
my NBA non-conference game of the month and my college basketball Southern Conference game of the month. So make sure
Okay.
you go check those out. We're going to have a bounce back day, and we make some money tonight.
There you go. Cash some tickets. That's what we want to hear. And finally, we talked about this before, but I think it's important to know, to reiterate. We talked about the top 25, but if you're looking for value, it's not in the top 25. It's not those teams. It's where you get smaller conferences and better opportunities in that regard.
Yeah, definitely. I took Colorado State yesterday. That was one of my plays. But like I said, you had the MAC conference game of the month with Toledo.
Mm-hmm.
I got a Southern Conference game of the month
Mm-hmm.
tonight. So yeah, these are the games where you're gonna find the value. These small schools where the books don't have the same edge that they would
Mm-hmm.
with some of these blue blood schools.
Well, yeah, and there's even that's why the Ivy League and some of these others are high wagered leagues, because you don't really know, as you said before, Ken Palm doesn't break everybody down, and even if he does, it's not going to give you the kind of intel that you're going to get on those major teams.
Yeah, definitely.
And they also play a schedule which, you know, these kids have. It's not like football. It's just you can't look at it like football. These kids actually do have times that they have to sit down and do classwork, and on the road, and so yeah. I mean, traveling, it's this time of the year is not easy because of the weather, and so it can be difficult, and you got to be in the right headspace to play. That's not the case when you're on a bus and you're going back and forth to some of these smaller conference games.
Yeah, definitely. Especially like the Ivy League, for example, they when
Hmm.
when everybody was playing all those games right before the Christmas break, the Ivy
Hmm.
League was actually off because they were doing exams.
Hmm.
And they had a good like 2 week break before
Hmm.
they played their first game after that Christmas
Hmm.
break when everybody else came back. So
Right. There
yeah,
you go.
they have lives too, and they got, as you said, they got schoolwork to do. Got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I, having traveled and done a lot of college basketball, I know how difficult sometimes you got guys doing study hall in the airport because the professor who travels with the team is working with them on all the different classes that they'd be having, and you know you're not always thinking about basketball.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. All right, so don't forget, all of Amadeus' stuff is in the show box below. And we said that it would be a great Christmas gift, but it's not a bad holiday gift, or just gifting it to yourself. Is the gift of Amadeus. is the gift that keeps on going. So by all means, check it out.
Yeah,
So
we got Valentine's Day in a month, so
yeah,
show yourself some love.
that's right. Show
Get those
yourself.
premium picks.
Get the premium picks because you're gonna love them. All right. Okay, everybody. Amadeus and I will be back on Thursday. No Thursday night football this week. So there you go. We'll have to think of something else to talk about. All right, guys. Have a lovely day. We'll be back. If you want to hit us up for anything, it's in the show box below. By all means, check out Amadeus' stuff, and we'll see you tomorrow.